What's up, guys? Stowed back with you again. A 2-1 yesterday. Easy win on the baseball game. New York Yankees. Charles, I know I think it was just you bashing me in the comments for that. Yeah, I hate the Yankees. I loathe them. But if I'm going to be able to win money on a good spot, a good matchup that they have, I'm obviously going to do it. So I did that. It makes the fact that they won a little bit less annoying to me. And then what else did I even have? Ottawa. That game was ridiculous. The hockey game. Ottawa was losing by 2 goals multiple times in the game, and that was an unbelievable game. It was ridiculous. It wound up going into overtime, and Ottawa wound up winning 8-7. I'll take the win. Wound up being more of a coin flip than I would have liked, and of course the Jets. What can you say about that? I thought I handicapped the game right. The Jets' offense was way better than it had been. Breece Hall had over 100 yards rushing. Aaron Rodgers put up pretty good stats in the game. He did not do well on the final drive, and he threw a pick at the end, but that was really more of a desperation heave. But, man, I was hoping that they were at least going to be able to tie the game, send it into overtime at that point. They did not do poorly in the game. They did have a touchdown to Braylon Allen called back on a pretty questionable, at best, holding call. Really, I think it was bullshit. I think it's just NFL rigging going on there, man. They want to stick it to Rodgers. Oh, let's call a hold on this touchdown play here to Braylon Allen. Yeah, whatever. That one play, if that was called differently, I think that might have been the difference in the game as well. So it pisses me off. Whatever. Let's look at today. So it finishes off an 0-3 college, 0-3 NFL weekend. So that's really great for me. Or NFL week, I should say. But I also did well in my pick'em pools, and I would say when I'm talking about the games Saturday night or whatever, some of my NFL opinions can change if it's a game where I don't really have as strong opinion on it. Like I wound up actually picking Cincinnati in my pools. I went 9-5 in my pools, and just the late market read can change, but the ones that I actually feel stronger about, I'm not going to change my feeling on those. All right, let's talk about today. I have one play today. It's going to be in hockey, but I'm going to give out a couple of leans in hockey as well. I'll talk about baseball first because I don't have a play on this. This is ALCS Game 2 is today. The NL is tomorrow because they're flying out to New York. So that's shifting over to the East Coast. So they get a day off for that. Cleveland, New York, I think a day off, maybe even 2. Cleveland and New York are playing, or no, I think it's just 1 day off. ALCS, the Yankees obviously won as I was on them yesterday, but this is a different situation where it's one that I don't want to get involved in the game. Tanner Bibby against Garrett Cole. So this is the number 1 starter from both teams pitching today. Tonight. Yankees down from -165 to -164. Of course, the books are going to make the Yankees a little bit of a strong favorite there with Cole on the mound, but they can't make them too strong, right? Because Bibby is also pretty good. He's quite good. 74% of the tickets on the Yankees, they are public. 93% of the cash on the Yankees, however. And it looks like the under is getting a lot of market traction here with 62% of the tickets on the over, 73% of the cash, however, on the under. The under might make sense because you are dealing with the aces of both staffs here, but when you look at Tanner Bibby's numbers, especially in this matchup, I think the under doesn't seem like a safe play to me at the very least because Bibby actually isn't very good against New York, and Yankee Stadium, kind of a hitter-friendly park, so you're not really going to find me playing an under in too many of these ghosts. What's up, man? I will disagree with you on that, but I will let that one slide. So this game, of course, we know the Yankees won yesterday. I didn't even look to see what the bullpen situation was because I already decided I wasn't going to play this game. But I don't even know what happened with the bullpens yesterday. Let's see. Cleveland did wind up using more of their bullpen. I don't know if they turned it into a bullpen game or if Cobb was so bad that they just took him out of the game, but that was part of my handicap yesterday. I thought it was a big pitching mismatch for the Yankees yesterday. Cobb, I just don't think he's trustworthy, man. So Cleveland had to use more of their bullpen, although they didn't really use any of their best relief pitchers yesterday. So both of these teams have good bullpens, but the Yankees actually wound up using a couple of their better relievers, mostly Weaver because they wound up in a save situation to try to finish off that game. But Cleveland used more pitchers out of the bullpen. But I think the bullpen situation is still kind of a wash coming into this game. Both bullpens are good, and both teams saved a bunch of their better relievers for the most part. Tanner Bibby, we can look at his stats. His stats are actually not very good against the Yankees, although obviously he put together a really good season. 3.47 ERA, 1.12 whip. He's made 2 starts in the postseason, both against Detroit, but he didn't even go 5 innings in either of them, and I think they just kept him on a pitch count, and they wanted to just go to the bullpen earlier in those games. I don't know if it's just because I think this is his first time pitching in the postseason. I don't really know why exactly they weren't just unleashing him, because he had a good game in the first game. 4 2/3 innings shutout with 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 4 hits. Second game, not as good, giving up 2 earned runs in 4 innings, 2 walks, 4 hits, 3 strikeouts. Overall, not terrible performances from him, but the Yankees are a different animal than Detroit. And up against the Yankees, it's a very small sample size, though, 17 at-bats. But he hasn't done well against them with 2 strikeouts to 3 walks. Not a good ratio there. 353 opponent batting average and 1,038 OPS. But keeping in mind that is a very small sample size. But just based on that, he has not done very well against the Yankees in that small sample size. So that would lead me to not really trust Bibby in a game like this, although he does have 1 career start in Yankee Stadium that I looked it up on Yahoo, and it was an okay start. I think he went like 5 innings and allowed 1 run or 2 runs or something. Not really much to take away from that, but not a horrible start. Bibby, however, if you look at his splits, he is also way better on the road than at home. So he does have fairly significant home road splits where he pitches better on the road. So just keeping that in mind as well. I'm not sure that he even played in Yankee Stadium this year, though. I don't think he did. I think maybe he only faced the Yankees at home this year. Or maybe he didn't. I don't even know if he faced them at all this year, actually. Looks like he did not. So that's another kind of interesting thing to throw out there. I think the Yankees haven't seen him this year, so maybe that will actually give Bibby a little bit of maybe an advantage to kind of counter that fact that he doesn't do well against these Yankee hitters. They have not seen him this year, it looks like. So that was something I did not have in mind when I started to talk about this. But again, I wasn't going to play this game anyway. Garrett Cole, obviously, he put together a good season as well. 3.41 ERA, 1.13 whip. He's made 2 starts in the postseason, and they've let him go, basically, especially in the second start, both against Kansas City. He didn't do well in the first start, which was in Yankee Stadium. Gave up 3 earned runs in 5 innings, 7 hits, 2 walks. Put way too many men on base in that one, and only got 4 strikeouts. Second game, he bounced back and had a much nicer start on the road at Kansas City. 4-0 strikeout walk ratio, 7 innings, 1 earned run, 6 hits allowed. So he seems to be at least maybe trending in the right direction as far as that's concerned. Both of these starters were pretty good down the stretch, by the way, in the regular season as well. Cole has good numbers in a much larger sample size against Cleveland, so I think there is more that you can take away from this, although he has faced a few of these hitters way more than the rest of them. But, 127 at-bat sample size, 32-12 strikeout walk ratio. He's held Cleveland to 236 average, 759 OPS. So Cole does have good numbers against Cleveland. But looking at his splits, he actually does worse at home than on the road significantly this season, at least, with a 4.31 ERA at home and 2.49 road ERA. So the splits that both of these starters have kind of conflict against who I think is actually the better pitcher in the matchup, because I think Cole actually has the better of the matchup, but the splits kind of pushed me away from it. So I lean to the Yankees very slightly, but this is not going to be a play for me. And the lean, I guess, still kind of makes sense to just lean with the market to the under in this, but there's no way that I'm going to be doing that. So this is a pass for me. What's on second, Zach? What's up on second? All right. Let's talk about NHL, where I do have one play here, and then hopefully I can get college football done quickly. NHL, we got a lot of situations that are strange to me with teams that have really not played much. Tampa and Carolina, I think neither of them have they both played one game against each other, and then because of the hurricane, they had one game postponed. So you're looking at teams where you really do not have much of much of a sample size to look at so far this season. And Vancouver has only played games into overtime losses so far, which is also quite strange. So I'm just going to point that out. I don't know what to take away from that other than Vancouver's had a lot of time off. Both teams have had a lot of time off in this one to kind of break up that losing momentum, because I actually think, well, for Vancouver, it could break up the losing momentum. Tampa actually won against Carolina, and I'll talk about Carolina in a second because I think that was actually a misleading result. So this is just a weird situation here, but Vancouver, I mean, they've had so much time off. I don't know that they're going to overlook a team like Tampa towards Florida that they have on deck, even though Florida are the returning champs. Tampa's a pretty good team as well, so not much to take away from that. Vegas, I think Vegas could be in kind of a difficult spot here. I mean, we have a few teams that are playing 3 games in 4 days. Vegas is not one of them, as they did have yesterday off, but this is going to be their first road game of the season, and they have Tampa, Florida up next, so they have that Florida leg of their trip up next after this, so it is possible they overlook a little bit of a lesser Washington team here, but not something I'm going to actually put my money on. But Washington has only played 1 game as well, and they lost to New Jersey, so Washington still looking for their first win, so could be a little bit more motivated there. New Jersey at Carolina. Carolina was almost going to be a play for me. Carolina does look public, though. They're up from minus 140 to minus 147, but they were up a little bit higher than that, and then it started dropping. I think because Carolina, it seems like Carolina's trending towards not playing Anderson in net in this game. They're playing, I don't even remember who their other goalie is there, but Carolina, it looks like they're going with their other goalie in this game, which is, let me look here, Kochetkov, although they're actually both pretty good, and Kochetkov, he's the younger of the 2 goalies, but he faced New Jersey twice last year. I looked this up, and Carolina won both of those games, and he only allowed 2 goals combined across the 2 games. One was a shutout for him, and the other one was a game where he allowed 2 goals, and they won both. So Kochetkov is actually not that bad. I don't think he's that much of a downgrade, really, from Anderson. And this is an interesting one because Carolina only has 1 game, and this is that Tampa Bay game I just mentioned that I think is a misleading result. Carolina, I mean, this game was pretty close. They only got slightly outplayed statistically in this game, really, but it was a 4-1 result. And the Lightning, 2 of their goals, the goals that were like basically the actual goals, were both on power plays after Carolina was winning 1-0. And then they had 2 empty net goals. So that makes the final result pretty misleading. I mean, that was a much closer game than what the final result would suggest. And this is bizarre because you have Carolina, who's an 0-1 team, although I think the public still knows Carolina's good. As you can see, 67% of the tickets, but only 60% of the cash on Carolina. So the public is still coming in on Carolina here. But I think it is still, the line almost kind of looks misleading, which is why I almost played this, because you have like a 4-1 New Jersey team up against an 0-1 Carolina team. And it's like, how are you getting New Jersey as an underdog price here? Well, as I said, I think Kochetkov is actually not that much of a downgrade. I think he's actually better than Markstrom. New Jersey has kind of this goalie tandem where I don't think either one of them is actually that great. Markstrom, I mean, he's fine, but over his career, he's not like a great goalie. He's probably playing in this game, I would imagine, because Allen played yesterday. But New Jersey is on a leg where they're playing 3 games in 4 days, 4 and 6. In 3 different cities, and the last 3 in 4 days are all in different cities, and they have to play in another city in Ottawa in 2 days. So they have kind of a packed schedule here, a tight schedule, and they're on a back-to-back, and they beat undefeated Utah yesterday, which I think looks good, but Utah, I mean, I think maybe there was just some hype where they kind of started the season hot because they were pumped up to be playing like in their new digs and whatever, and they're the new hockey club and whatever, but this is still the Arizona Coyotes basically from last year, man. So I don't think Utah is actually this good, and one of their wins was against Chicago. I mean, I don't think they're very good. So I would take a step back on Utah a little bit. So I think that New Jersey win isn't maybe as good as it looks, and they beat Buffalo twice. I mean, Buffalo's not great, and those were in the Czech Republic, so kind of a weird situation. So I would kind of ignore those games for the most part, to be honest. And then they lost to Toronto, who was their best opponent that they faced so far, in my opinion. I think Toronto's probably the best out of these few teams here. And then they beat Washington in their only road game so far. And Washington, I mean, they're okay. I said they were pretty bad last year, which I think they were, even though I think they slipped into the playoffs last year. But New Jersey, I mean, they haven't really faced a gauntlet of a schedule yet. So Carolina is going to be their toughest opponent that they've faced so far. So I do like Carolina, but the market does look kind of against it. Minnesota, St. Louis, trying to run through these quick because I am going to talk about college football as well because there are 3 stupid Tuesday games. Minnesota, I think, is in a bad spot as well. So I would somewhat lean to St. Louis in this one. Minnesota, they're playing a 3rd game in 4 days and a 4th game in 6. But they have had 1 day off, but they played their last 2 games into overtime and shootouts against Seattle and Winnipeg and lost both of them against some conference foes. There's some pretty good opponents there, but they also don't have anything big up next with Columbus. So I think maybe they would still bring focus in this game against St. Louis. So this is not a game I'm going to play on either. St. Louis is also not in the greatest of spots, I wouldn't say, even though they've had a lot of days off. So they are the more rested team, but they are still coming off a tough game against Vegas. So my lean would still be to St. Louis because they have more rest. And I think playing a couple of overtime games for Minnesota could take a lot out of them. You can see St. Louis has flipped from plus 102 to minus 110. So the favorite is kind of flipped in that one. So I do like St. Louis in that one. And I like Nashville as well, but it's also not something I'm going to do. Nashville up from minus 150 to minus 152. Don't see any market percentages yet, but I kind of like this one too because I think Seattle is in a bad spot. So Nashville and Carolina are both almost plays for me, but you do have to lay favorite prices on these. Seattle is playing a 3rd game in 4 days, and that's all in different cities as well, although not a back-to-back, but still kind of a tough stretch where they're playing all these games on the road. Last game, they played a tough game against Dallas, and before that was that shootout win at Minnesota. So a couple tough games in a row. They don't exactly have anything up next that I think is going to necessarily draw their focus. So not really a sandwich spot or anything like that, but I think Nashville's record at the very least is misleading. Seattle's probably going with Decord in this game in net. They're kind of going with that goaltender tandem as well, where they kind of alternate goalies. Because I don't think either of them are that great, to be honest. So Decord, I mean, he's a capable goalie, but he's not outstanding. Nashville's got the better goalie in this one, assuming that they're going with Juuse Saros in this game, which I believe they are. I mean, Josie Saros, or no, Josie was their top performer. Never mind. It is Juuse Saros, right? Yeah, I think so. But they have Josie and Juicy on their team, I think. Not Jussie Smollett, not Juicy Smollett. Saros, he is one of the better goalies in the league. I talked about him last year, but I think he just continues to kind of fly under the radar. He is good, although he did lose his first game against Detroit. But this game, I think, was a little bit misleading as well. Talking about misleading results here. I mean, this had an empty net goal in it as well. So that makes the final result a little bit misleading. So Saros didn't do that badly in this one. He gave up 2 goals, kind of a normal performance there. But look at the shot discrepancy. I mean, I know some of it was because Nashville was losing, but they almost outshot the Red Wings by double the amount of shots, and they won the faceoff percentage. So this is a pretty misleading result, man. Statistically, Nashville was way better in that game than what it looks like. So I think that Nashville is probably the way to go in this game. And they don't look great because they're 0-2, but they've had multiple days off, which I think can help like kind of stall that losing momentum and break that losing momentum. And I mean, they lost to Dallas by 1 and they lost to Detroit. I mean, those are both pretty decent opponents. So I do like Nashville in that one somewhat. And then I guess let's talk about the actual play that I'm on. I have one play today. Yeah, hate me for this one. This is on the Columbus Blue Jackets, plus 140. They're an underdog at home. It looks like the money is coming in on them. Florida's dropped from minus 170 to minus 150. 57% of the tickets and 66% of the cash on Columbus. I think this is a tough spot for Florida, man. I mean, Florida's got a lot going on here. Florida, they're playing a back-to-back. They just beat the Bruins again, who have become kind of a rivalry, beating my Bruins, which are their only 2 wins on the season, by the way. So they have not beaten any team who is not the Boston Bruins so far. But they're facing a 4th straight road game after that, a back-to-back, 3 games in 4 days, and 4 and 6, all in different cities. So scheduling-wise, I think they're in the toughest spot, man. Now they have to go to a Columbus team that I think is pretty easy to overlook. And up next, they have a stretch against a bunch of better teams: Vancouver, Vegas, Minnesota, Rangers. So if they're going to overlook one of these teams in the schedule, I think it's going to be Columbus. So I like getting Columbus as a home underdog price here. And we can make it a little better because Florida does have injury issues here. Matthew Tkachuk, however you pronounce his name, one of the guys that I hate the most. I think he's a cheap, dirty player. He's out with some sort of illness, so he's not going to be back. I think they're saying he's not going to be back until October 22nd, so he's not going to be playing in this game, which I know is factored into the line, but still, I mean, he's an important piece that they have there. And Barkov, I believe, is also injured. So a couple of their better players are both out. And I believe, and we don't know for sure, I don't think this is confirmed yet, but I look at starting goalies and they try to anticipate who the starting goalie is going to be, and they put it up once the team announces who their starter is going to be. Bobrovsky is obviously their starting goalie, their better goalie. He played yesterday, and he's played twice over the last few days. So I think they're probably going to be alternating goalies here because of the spot, because of the rest situation, and because it's a weaker opponent. It seems likely that Knight is going to be in net here instead of Bobrovsky, and Knight is a significantly worse goalie than Bobrovsky, so I think that also helps us play a little bit. Knight is a very young guy, and his goals allowed so far this season, 4.13. That's not good. He's played the last few seasons, actually, because these hockey players start young, but his stats, they're okay, but not great, so he is obviously their second-string goalie there, so he's not quite as good, and he wasn't good in his one game this year where he allowed 4 goals against Buffalo, like I mentioned. So it's a downgrade in goalie for Florida coming into this game, which helps because Columbus's goalies suck. So I am playing on a team that has terrible goalies in Columbus, but I think the spot calls for it. This is just what I do, man. So Columbus is the one play there in hockey, plus 140. I think the spot calls for it. Oh, and I didn't mention Columbus's schedule, did I? Columbus is in the better rest spot, man. So I think they're probably going to be ready for this game. They are coming off a big win over Colorado. Colorado's kind of looked bad so far, but they got a win, so I think that helps. You get that first win out of the way. And now they have a few days off. They don't really have any big games up next, so I'm pretty sure Florida's going to draw their focus, man, when you have the returning champs coming in. So I don't anticipate a letdown here against off of the Colorado win, even though that is a big win. And they've had a bunch of time off, and it's a big opponent that's going to draw focus. So the rest should help any sort of situation where they might, be tired because they have to put in a max effort multiple times in a row. I think Florida has to be the way more tired team here based on how the schedule lines up for them. And the letdown, like I said, I think is not going to happen because when the returning champs are coming to your house, I don't think you're going to be in a letdown spot. So Columbus is the one play. The market does look to be in agreement. And like I said, the two other plays that were closer to being plays for me in hockey were Carolina Hurricanes and Nashville Predators. If you wanted to play money lines on those, paying a little bit of a price for those, but both of those look like they've dropped a little bit too. So a little bit hard to anticipate. The market looks to me more of a much stronger read, actually, on Columbus. Let's look at college football here before I get out of here. Hopefully I can get this done quickly. We have 3 awful games in college football. It's Tuesday college football time, baby. We get Sun Belt, Conference USA. I think those are the only 2 conferences that play today, but man, these are not great matchups. The one at 7:30 is probably the best, which is the Sun Belt game between Troy and South Alabama. South Alabama is up from 11.5 to 13.5, but they are very public with 87% of the tickets, only 77% of the cash. The total is plummeted from 57 juice to the under to 54.5. So it looks like there has been some movement there towards the under, which I'm not sure I agree with that because South Alabama can certainly score and their defense is bad. And Troy is known for having a good defense, but this year their defense is not very good either. So you're looking at 2 pretty bad defenses. So I'm not sure that the under makes sense in this game, to be honest. You have 57% of the tickets, and it says 100% of the cash on the under with 57% of the tickets on the over. I don't think that 100% is actually what's happening. The line does look like it's dropped, but I don't agree with the move towards the under in this one, really, just because I don't think that Troy has really been playing good defense at all. Troy, they faced a pretty tough schedule, though, man. Nevada, they're kind of better than we thought. They were Memphis and Iowa, both on the road. Those are pretty difficult opponents, man. So I'm not going to bash them for losing those games. And UL Monroe, as I pointed out, has just been upsetting everybody, and I don't know how that's the case. And then Troy lost to Texas State in their most recent game. Texas State, also a pretty good team, man. So Troy has not had it easy. So I think they're probably better than their 1-5 record makes them look, although I don't think they're that good. And we don't know who their quarterback is. So Goose Crowder, I believe, is their starting quarterback. The Goose is loose, but we have no idea if he's going to play in this game. And they've had 3 different quarterbacks each start 2 games this season so far. So the quarterback situation is bizarre. Right now, Kilcrease has been their starter, filling in the last couple of games because Goose Crowder is injured. Kilcrease did fine in the last game against Texas State. Texas State is way more of an offensive team than a defensive team. And Kilcrease was terrible against UL Monroe, although I don't know what happened in that game, to be honest. Just terrible offense in that game. So Goose Crowder, I mean, he is their best quarterback, so if he's in there, he should help a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be back, but Troy is coming out of a bye. So the bye could also help Troy here break up this losing momentum, and I think they have a significant rest advantage over South Alabama in this game. South Alabama just didn't play on Saturdays either, so they actually had a bye as well. So I think Troy only has a slight rest advantage actually in this game, so never mind. I thought this was one of the more significant ones. So Troy's been off for like 11 days, and South Alabama's been off for 9, so not a whole lot of difference there. So both teams actually have had their loss streaks broken up. South Alabama's faced an easier schedule. They did have a loss to LSU in there, but other than that, they haven't faced a very difficult schedule. So Troy has definitely faced a more difficult schedule, but South Alabama has a way better offense. They have Gio Lopez at quarterback. I don't know. He must have been hurt for this second game, and then he came back, but he is a pretty capable quarterback, more than capable quarterback for South Alabama. So that's why South Alabama is the major favorite here. I mean, they are the way better offense. But Troy, I mean, they faced a more difficult schedule, so I don't hate the Troy side in this game either, plus the points. If their defense is actually going to show up at some point, it's possible that Troy still does have the better of the 2 defenses, and they're getting a ton of points here because South Alabama is just all offense. But then it's questionable whether or not Troy can score enough to keep up with them. So that's going to kind of be the problem there. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think both of these teams are kind of more of a pass-heavy offense. Hopefully I can talk about these games quick, man. Yeah, I mean, the rushing attacks, I mean, I don't know if you can't tell just based on their leading rusher, so I'll just leave it at that. The next game, I'm not playing any of these games. I mean, these games are ridiculous. Kennesaw State against Middle Tennessee, just 2 horrifically ugly teams here. I mean, you have one of the worst offenses in FBS with Kennesaw and one of the worst defenses in FBS with Middle Tennessee, so I don't know what we're doing here. Middle Tennessee's laying 10 points. Double-digit favorites in all of these, 82% of the tickets and only 51% of the cash. So Middle Tennessee is public here just because Kennesaw is so bad and they're new to FBS. 72% of the tickets are on the over and 81% of the cash on the under, even though we've seen them move up a little bit from 49.5 to 50.5. I'm not sure I agree with the under in this game either, just because I think Kennesaw State, I mean, what's the solution for having a terrible offense? The solution is that you face a bad defense, and that is what they're up against in Middle Tennessee here. So, although they haven't done particularly well against some other questionable defenses, including FCS, UT Martin. So, I don't know. Kennesaw State's offense just hasn't been good, man, with Bryson at quarterback there. I mean, they may switch to a different quarterback. I think they're going to have to make a change of some kind because this offense has been really bad. They haven't won a game yet this season. They do have 10 days off, so they had a break there after giving up 63 points to Jacksonville State. So they just got absolutely smacked in their last game. Middle Tennessee also got absolutely smacked in their last game, and I thought this was a good spot for Middle Tennessee. They were only a kind of a smallish favorite in that game, and they still got absolutely wrecked coming out of a bye. They still just did terribly against Louisiana Tech. Just awful performance from Middle Tennessee. Their defense is really getting lit up this year, so I don't know. I mean, they have faced a few tough opponents, though. Ole Miss, obviously, very difficult opponent. And then, I mean, an ACC team, Duke, that's not easy. Memphis is not easy. Western Kentucky is a pretty good team as well. So Middle Tennessee has faced a pretty difficult schedule, much more difficult than Kennesaw's. And Middle Tennessee does have the better passing attack. They can't run the ball really, I don't think at all, but their passing attack is the best unit on the field here with Vattiato. So they have the way, way better quarterback, and he just because of him, they have a better offense, obviously. But they have a really shortened rest here. They last played on Thursday, so they have less than a week off here. Only 4 days off, so the rest situation is really not good for Middle Tennessee there. So, again, I'm not going to play it, but we'll see. I mean, if you force me to lean, I'm going to have to lean to taking the points with Kennesaw, just because I think their offense might finally be able to actually score a little bit against this atrocious Middle Tennessee defense, and the rest spot is just so bad for Middle Tennessee State that I just think maybe that will happen. And they do have a bigger game kind of up against Jacksonville State next, so maybe that will come into play a little bit there. I don't know. And I don't know that these other teams that I was looking at have anything like bigger up on the horizon. Yeah, not really. For South Alabama and Troy, I mean, whatever, even though Troy does have a terrible record, so it is possible to overlook them as well. So I actually lean kind of to the over and to taking the underdog in both those first two games, which seems weird, I know. And then the late game before I get out of here, the later game is Louisiana Tech. The aforementioned Louisiana Tech was coming off crushing Middle Tennessee State. They're at New Mexico State, and they're up from -10.5 to -11 with juice, with 60% of the tickets. So they're a bit of a public road favorite. I mean, obviously, we know the reason why, because they're coming off a blowout of Middle Tennessee State. And New Mexico State just got totally blown out, I think, in their most recent game. But it's up to 80% of the cash now with the line moving up. So the market read does look like it's towards laying the points with Louisiana Tech here. I'm not sure about this, man. I think this is just a really weird conflict of styles here, where I think Louisiana Tech, their passing offense is all throwing the ball, and New Mexico State can't throw the ball at all, and they can only run the ball. And I think Louisiana Tech, I don't know what they have going on defense. I think their defensive strength might actually be against the run as well. So New Mexico State, I don't think really has the offensive capabilities to really exploit Louisiana Tech's defensive strength, which I believe is a bit more against the run. So I don't know what to think about this game at all. Louisiana Tech, they're coming off that blowout of Middle Tennessee State, but they really have not looked good besides that. I mean, they lost to NC State, an ACC team. I'll give them a pass for that, but they didn't beat Nichols, an FCS team, by very much. That looks bad. Losing to a bad Tulsa team looks bad, and losing to Florida International, who's just not a good team at all. I mean, that doesn't look good either. And Louisiana Tech just hasn't been able to do that much, man. They got Bullock, a quarterback, and he's coming off his best game against Middle Tennessee State, and they just switched to him because their other quarterbacks weren't getting it done. So maybe he is the answer, because he put up a better game against Middle Tennessee. He did not do well against FIU, really, though. So he's coming into this game, and they're on really short rest, too. They only had 4 days off as well. So Louisiana Tech's coming off a blowout win, and they're on a short week. So it doesn't look great for them either, although they have UTEP up next. So they're not going to be looking ahead to UTEP. New Mexico State, 1-5 team. I mean, they just don't look great either, although they faced Liberty in there. I mean, that's not an easy game, really. Fresno, at least, is a Mountain West team. They got obliterated by them. Sam Houston is a good rushing attack, and they lost to them. And then New Mexico put up 50 on them, but they at least put up 40 back on New Mexico. Bronco Mendenhall's New Mexico team in that rivalry game, and they also are on kind of short rest here. They played on Wednesday, so they only have one more day rest than Louisiana Tech does. So we're looking at two teams that are really not on a whole lot of rest here. But New Mexico State just got blasted by Jacksonville State. And both of these teams last played in one of those midweek primetime games too. So on national TV, what we saw was New Mexico State getting absolutely destroyed and Louisiana Tech destroying their opponent. So those are kind of conflicting events there. You have New Mexico State maybe in a bounce back spot because that loss was so ugly to Jacksonville State, and Louisiana Tech looked way too good against Middle Tennessee. So I don't know exactly if that matters necessarily, but you have one team that looks way worse than they probably actually are, and another team that looks better than they actually are. So the reality lies somewhere in the middle there, but the market still looks like it's not going with that sentiment. It looks like the pros are actually kind of coming in on the Louisiana Tech side here. I mean, New Mexico State, I mean, their offense really is pretty bad. And they don't know who their quarterback is. They had Awad terrible name, a wad of what, in there for a while. And then they brought in Marucci, and he looked like maybe he did a little bit better, but not a whole lot. And then they went back to a wad. So they just don't have an answer at quarterback. I don't even know if they try throwing that much. They're like a almost entirely rushing attack on offense there for New Mexico State. So that also means that if New Mexico State falls behind, they're probably not going to be equipped to come back. So that's not really what you want in an underdog. I mean, I know that having an underdog that runs the ball, maybe they'll slow the pace of the game and like kind of stay in the game. But if they fall behind a superior opponent, which they are facing an opponent that's better than they are here, they aren't well equipped to make a comeback in the game. So that's kind of the problem there. So market read, I'm just going with the market read on all of these. The slight lean would be to Louisiana Tech there. The total here is up from 47.5 to 50, but 88% of the tickets and only 75% of the cash on the over. So this does look like a public over here. I'm not sure I would agree with the over in this one necessarily, because both these offenses have struggles, man. So I don't know. Even though New Mexico State's defense isn't very good either, but New Mexico State on offense really does not look like they're well equipped to be able to do a lot of damage against Louisiana Tech. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd slightly lean to the under there, but that's my breakdown of all these games, man. I mean, these games are just all really horrendously ugly. So that's going to do it for me. I'm Tower Gang Toad, of course. My one play is the NHL play on Columbus Blue Jackets plus 140. I want to go 1-0 today, but of course it's an underdog. So you're not saying you necessarily think they're really going to win the game outright, but they have better odds to win than what the odds are giving them. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Tower Gang Toad again on Twitter, and follow the Tower Gang podcast every Wednesday night, tomorrow night, 9:11 p.m. Eastern, the most hilarious podcast on the planet. I don't know if Owen Benjamin's going to be a guest on the show tomorrow night or not, but we should be doing a show. We should be back with you. And Bohemian Grove is coming up next week at the end of the week, so we may not have an episode next week on Wednesday. I'm not sure, but we will, I believe, be at Bohemian Grove, so you might still be able to get tickets to that. That is in Central Florida, I believe, on Friday and Saturday next week. So be on the lookout for that, and that's going to do it for me, man. And sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/TowerGang. You get live pre-show, post-show, and you get to hang out with us in a Telegram. That's going to do it, man. Peace out.